Hi, welcome to Dungeon BS, where we sit and talk about Dungeons and Dragons with your host, me, Amber Garcia. Well, our adventure begins in the land of Theros. Theros is a unique setting to Dungeons and Dragons. First off, it came from the game Magic the Gathering, the trading card game. Now, the big differences between Theros and the other settings are going to be three big things. So, first, anything that you believe or dream can come to life. If your dungeon master allowed you to have this rule before, then perhaps it'll be easy just to roll with it. But if you're a dungeon master who hasn't really let people believe their own objects or creatures into reality, you might have to loosen up with this rule. The reason being is because when human unconsciousness goes to work, the players can perhaps believe things, creatures, or ideas that can come to life or happen. Perhaps in a dream, they saw some kind of prophecy, something of that sort. And that kind of leads us into the second important thing. So, humans' collective unconsciousness, and I should say creatures' collective unconsciousness can give a deity, God, entity, its undivine power. So, if you believe in a God, if you worship a God, you are giving it power just by believing. So, when players are devoted to a God, the God can intervene a lot more. This might come in handy when role playing. Perhaps you can get creative as being a god. Perhaps be Neptune of the sea. Who knows? Essentially, the third thing that makes Theros unique is that the players cannot just simply choose to disbelieve in the gods. That's not an option in this realm. It's not an option in the setting, it's not an option in this rule book. So, unlike other settings, like the Faerun setting or the the Eberron setting, you cannot simply choose to just disbelieve in the gods and not have to deal with them. No, the big thing about this book is that the gods are all around us and they are constantly intervening in our life. The the thing to kind of combat gods, a little side note, if you're a dungeon master and you're wondering, well, if the gods are just going to take hold of the game, what's the point of even being a dungeon master? Well, there are other things that players can do to kind of get rid of a god. For instance, if you can think of it, you can abandon it. If a god is not being worshipped, if it's not being valued, then the god can simply fade away, or the entity can simply fade away, or the evilness can simply fade away. However, if there is a creature, a human, or any player that does believe in that entity, then it's not fully gone. Now, this can get very weird because gods in Theros have a destiny to play. So, I would suggest that as long as the abandoning idea, getting rid of a god, is not one of the main gods that can mess with the setting or the storyline, then I would say it's fair game. But in this setting, you do want to respect the gods because that is the biggest difference between Theros and other settings, is the gods. Um, Now, to elaborate more on the gods, they are going to see time way differently. Big surprise. They are universal entities that cannot necessarily travel through time, but they can travel through space and through ideas and through spirit. So I know that sounds funny, but you try to imagine it in your game. Ultimately, the gods do have an end, and I'll get into that in other videos. Hopefully, this is the first in many. The last thing I kind of wanted to talk about before I did sign off is that Theros has two planes besides its earth plane. It has Nyx, which is the realm of the gods, and then it has the underworld, which is the home of the dead. So, with Nyx, I would definitely imagine something like Mount Olympia, definitely like Zeus's home, or just, amazing Greek godlike places to live. And with the underworld, I would definitely imagine Hades. I definitely imagine places like hell, anything biblical. I'm pretty sure that would be a good way to describe Hades, or excuse me, the underworld, where all the dead go to rest. With that being said, I hope you find a great interest in the world of Theros, and I hope that you join me next time for episode 2, which, let me check what we're going to go into. It will be more of the gods, and we'll probably talk about champions and heroes. So, thank you for joining me, Amber, with your Dungeon BS. You have a good night. Take care.